put back in the depot. So I thought the last run. So the disco bus is great. Like this bus, because we live in that studio like day and night, and sometimes just we needed an escape route. This bus was it, you know, and it could take us anywhere, take us to clubs, take us to pubs, and then eventually it became a club and a pub. I think.
Oh, I'm turning it on. Right.
I actually.
You designed it. So.
I designed this one.
Seeing Dublin and where you're from, how did you two become what it's today?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. It's just, you know, it's a combination of so many different things. You know, it's like Fauna said earlier on, one of the reasons I think that we managed to survive to a large extent was the fact that we lived in Dublin and we stayed here, we based ourselves here. And also at the time we signed our first record deal, the record company were happy enough to let us do what we wanted to do. We didn't have to move to London, we didn't have to do what all the other bands did.
It's about, I mean, we throw these words around, like independence, indie music, or whatever that is. We've always been independent, and you have to pay for your independence, and we just built up an organisation here in Dublin, and that acted as a bodyguard, and allowed us to just get on with making our mistakes in the relative privacy of this city, you know, and you know, when success hits a band, it can kind of knock you a little bit. It's good. This is a city of begrudgers, and I like that. And I think rock and roll bands need a good clip on the ear occasionally, and I certainly do. And you get it every day here, and it just keeps you sharp. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way Dublin people are. They don't look up to success the way, say, other nationalities do. There's a story, and you know, in America they say, you know, the guy looks up at the mansion on the hill and he says, you know, one day you know, if I work really hard, I'm going to live in that mansion on the hill. Well, in Dublin it's more, they look up at the mansion on the hill and they say, one day I'm going to get that bastard. And I think, you know, but I just like that. People are hard, but it's a city full of laughter. It's a city, people don't take that seriously. It's like, and that's great, and that's part of the reason why I think we stayed here.
Why has U2 gone pop?
Simply not, I suppose. You know, the only way is up.
Do you want to put on some of our version of pop? Stick it in there.
What number would you like?
So it's track 3.
Oh, okay.
Why the decision to work with people like Steve Osborne and Howie B on this album?
I suppose every record that we've made has always taken on board, you know, some kind, you know, the influences that, you know, of just your record collection. Do you know what I mean? And there's Dublin was never a big club scene. In the last few years, has become one. And clubs down there, one club of the year in Mix magazine, and they've got a lot of great DJs coming through. One of them was Howie B. One of the best gigs I've ever seen or heard was a Howie B gig in the kitchen. And I think these, just the influences of what you hear when you're walking down the street are so all over the place in the 90s. You know, you hear metal coming out of one window, or like some soul groove coming out of another, or you know, a techno thing or a trance thing around the corner. And in fact, even if you go into people's record collections, they're all mixed up now. You know, there's no one tribe that rules, and I really, really like that. That music is so mixed up, and I think our record, our album, is a mixed up of an album, and I think that's because that's the way it is.
U2's maybe I feel like that from Acton Baby and rock and now pop. U2 is it's a mirror of like the surreal things we see every day, like
Surreal.
like surrealism, like
We like surreal.
yeah.
We live surreal. That's what we learn to see surreal. I mean, for us to write about, other people's experiences, the experience of what it is not to have a job, or the experience of what it is to, to live on the street, would be dishonest, because we haven't lived on the street for a long time. But I think we're connected to, I think our music has connections to the heart and the soul of people. It doesn't matter where you're from, or what background, or how lucky or unlucky you were. I think the themes covered in our music are universal in that sense. And we have a sort of slightly surreal twist on these things.
Seguimos en este especial de YouTube, pero vamos a tener que hacer una pequeña pausa. Desde la van, la conversación va a continuar con Bono Box haciendo historia, o mejor dicho, haciendo pop, hablando para Latinoamérica, y también con Larry Mullen. La pausa es corta, ya regresamos con YouTube Pop. Seguimos en el pop de YouTube, qué mejor lugar que continuar con este especial junto a la banda pop más importante del mundo, que en un supermercado de discos, o como le quieran llamar. El pop se vende como en un supermercado, la gira de YouTube tiene por nombre Pop Mart Tour. YouTube está lanzando lo que es un disco, y obviamente aquí en Dublín, Irlanda, también es un acontecimiento por ser la banda local más importante. Y ojo que es la banda local más importante del planeta. Y en el planeta se vende música así, pero también puedes tener acceso a YouTube a través de MTV o a través de Internet. Pero en el fondo el pop es el producto que YouTube vende, y más o menos esto es lo que la banda nos quiso seguir contando. Keep the cars, collecting for the promise, so way down and way, and the love, what's that you say to make us love, light up your... There is a sense of yearning in this album as well. Is that an accurate reading?
I mean, our attempt at making a party record, but I think it sort of turns mean on you after about the first three tunes. It's not on downers at all, though. As a record, I do think that it's very optimistic. It's a record full of light, but you see light by contrast, and you have to be real. There's no point in being fantastic. You don't have. It's not grim. But it has a lot of, there are a lot of sort of dark, the dark side to the record, sure, and the dark side to us, that's just the way we are. In the end, we try to avoid melancholy.
But in a very damp climate.
It's a damp climate.
Why didn't you work with Brian Eno in this new album?
Doesn't like noisy records.
Not a fan of the guitar or drums, actually, for that matter.
Or vocals.
No. And indeed, some of the arrangements, some of the ideas were rejected along the way before we ended up with the final mixes for that very reason, that they lent too much towards a particular genre that we were interested in exploring, but we didn't want to be taken over completely by it.
You know, sampling is very much accepted. Playing with sequences and computer music is very much accepted. So it's a much, much smaller step to add dance to that than it was to add that to what U2 was doing 5 years ago.
Y seguimos desde Dublín, Irlanda, el movimiento, la gente, el tráfico. Dublín. Obviamente se dieron cuenta que en la banda de YouTube Bono quiso sacarnos y mostrarnos un poco de qué se trata Irlanda, la gente y también el ritmo de una ciudad que es bastante agitado, y el ritmo de la banda, como se dieron cuenta, también era un poco agitado. Y vamos a seguir conociendo. A mis espaldas está lo que es de noche. La entrevista se desarrolló durante todo el día, conociendo del disco nuevo y también de algún par de detalles que no sabíamos, en vista que nos dieron por fin una entrevista para toda Latinoamérica. YouTube, Pop, aquí en MTV. Not considering the underground movement in the 70s or the 80s, you were the first one who, like, in the mainstream level, were very worried about technology, about, like, I don't want to call it industrial, but like
worried.
Worried about that. Like, telling a truth, a point. I mean, what's the world coming to, whatever, the internet, the satellites. You were talking about that in Acting Baby.
Not so much worried. I mean, just commenting about it, because everything is going to be very different in 10 years' time. And we're right at the, we're just right at the edge of a huge revolution, and like the Industrial Revolution, the turn of the last century. And I actually am quite excited by it, as well as frightened by it. And you have a situation where, I mean, the internet is an extraordinary device to bring people together, to talk, but at the same time, some people aren't leaving their house. And, you have a situation like we met a guy that we grew up with a few months back, and he's a computer operator, and he came out with us. Somebody had thrown a party, and this guy was a lot of fun, and he wasn't really able to relax and enjoy himself. And we were asking him, what was the problem? And he said, oh, I don't know, I'm not used to talking to people in their bodies. I was like, okay. And so you have this kind of freakish lifestyles in cyberspace, which is interesting. But I think basically we're just getting off on the fact that I think it's a time of change, and hopefully it could be a time for change for the better. But it might not be. That depends on what you and I and Larry over there in the corner and whoever's listening wants to do about it. But it really is a time to change.
Larry, how do you feel about like this technology thing, getting into U2's music, loops, samplers, drum machines, and the new era of U2 in the 90s?
Well, from a drummer's point of view, you can't fight it, so you got to work with it. But from my point of view, I need it. I need it to make me sound great, and that's what it does. So I love it. Bring it on,
Okay.
I like it. I think it's important. It's exciting. It's different. I don't think electronic music is necessarily that interesting. I think it can become quite linear, but the mixture between you know, musicians and technology. That's good. I like that. Brings out a whole
I just like
new
to
thing.
interrupt there. I'd like to interrupt that transmission to say that, you know, Larry's not just a good rock drummer, he's a great rock drummer, and don't listen to him talk. He doesn't need any of this shit. And the reason I think he's playing with it is because it's fun, and it's to see how far you can take it. And, you know, let's not turn rock and roll music into folk. You know, because people had the same argument about guitar originally, you know, and people were throwing bottles at Bob Dylan when he turned from being, you know, a folk singer to plugging in an electric guitar. But the same, you know, Jimi Hendrix, you know, we love the way he sounds, right? That wild, spiraling, distorted guitar sound. That came through a printed circuit, you know, it's a little printed circuit. And still rock and roll is playing with technology. They're just different printed circuits, newer kinds of printed circuits.
I think that the you know the songs come through in the end, and a lot of the sounds are enhancing. You know the ideas. You know, there's a lot of different elements that people like Howie B bring to the record, Steve Osmer, and whatever. But I don't think it's as radical as people expected it to be. I mean, as far as you know, people saying hip hop and all that sort of shite. You know, it's not that. It's still U2. And that's what's great about being a U2. No matter how far you try to run away from it, you're still gonna sound like U2.
You know, it's not a dance record. Dance record in places, but it's not a dance record, but the remixes that will come off on the B-sides of the singles we put out, that's the club culture part of what we're doing, and that's exciting too. It's like cell division, you know. You have a song on an album, and then it sort of divides into other component parts, and you'd have a David Morales mix, or a Steve Osborne mix, or a David Holmes mix, all from the same tune. And it reminds me of almost the jazz era, you know, when a songwriter like a Cole Porter would write a melody and lyrics to a song, and then lots of different artists would interpret it in very, very different ways. And we're involved in that process, and that makes it very exciting. So there's no point in making a dance record that people are going to play in their car and in their homes. The club culture side of it is in the 12 inches and on the remixes. What's important for you too is that we can do anything we want. That's important. As soon as somebody tells us you can't do it, then we want to do it. Somebody says, you're a rock band, so don't you try and get onto the dance floor. We just think, oh. And as soon as somebody says, well, you're a folk band, you know, you sing songs about the street, that's the moment I want off the street. You mustn't allow yourself to be put in a box.
Do you feel like you're maturing along with the audience?
I think we've got people who've come along the way with us, you know, grew up with us. But a lot of the people that we grew up with, we probably confused. Chipped off it up to them, baby. And they might have jumped ship here and there. And I feel loyal to the ones that have hung on because they have much more of an elastic limit than I thought they would. But I'm actually more excited about the letters and the response from people who only discovered the band on MTV. That's where you're at. It's not about age, it's about sus.
Este fin de semana en el supermercado de la música, MTV tiene los mejores productos. U2 Pop, U2 de la A a la Z, U2 Bla Bla Bla, U2 Su TV y U2 Rattle at Home. U2 Weekend Especial. Este sábado a las 11:30 México y Buenos Aires. En MTV.
Mofo. I mean, for me, that's a reason to go out and play like that song. It's an animal. I feel that song, in a way, is my whole life in it. You know, that it almost sums me up as a songwriter and the reason why I'm in a band. And I guess that's pretty sad. If the song can sum me up. But in the way the band is now, like we are out in the ether somewhere. And a lot of people would like us to, you know, come back to Earth. But I personally like it out here, and I'm not coming down.
My favourite track when we were recording was Playboy Mansion. I love that from I got a tape about a year and a half ago of the original idea. I just said, this is a great song.
Is a mystery. Michael Jackson. History is beauty.
There was one part of your album, the last touches of a pop album, were done in Miami. And Miami for us, in a way, is a gateway to Latin America. That's where our MTV is based. There, what was your impression of Miami or the inspiration you got from Miami?
So we went to Miami to sort of escape from Dublin. We've been in the studio in Dublin for maybe 6-7 months. Sunshine, a bit of beach, escape. I don't know if or the record necessarily. Now, Miami is like a crossroads. That's sort of gateway. Probably lots of very deep reasons why we were there, but really for me it was just sunshine and the dance here.
Even in the lyrics, there's like, if it's in Miami, maybe it's okay.
Yeah, well, it's nice. You know, there's a sense of the future there. And I mean, it's glamour puss, you know, on one level. And then on another level, there's sort of, you know, hardcore violence running through it. But then there's the people, especially the Latin people, have with them their, you know, their own ways and even their religion is kind of with North America. It's just where everything just seems to be in a state of flux. Everyone goes to bed.
I was thinking about Latin America because this is a weird situation because Latin American audiences never had the chance of like meeting you two, and this is for the people. I mean, actually, this is for Latin American people. You're going there now, but you were talking about Latin America in a way long ago. By the time of Joshua Tree, I missed you in the amnesty thing in Argentina, and of course, Latin America. You had your ideas about Latin America back then. Like the political situation, the dictatorships.
Well, there's some connection between Latin America and Ireland. I mean, it would take me an hour and a half, you know, and I'd bore your arse off talking about it, but it's not just the Catholicism. It's not just the weather. Certainly not the weather. I think it's about they're young there's been a lot of political unrest here in Ireland, and there's often in Latin America countries been the same thing. And you get a sense of people coming of age even now, even though we've been here for hundreds of years, thousands of years. There's a sense of people coming into themselves, finding their feet after years of oppression. And you can feel it in the literature of South America and Latin America. You can feel it in the music, and it's the same here in Ireland. I mean, maybe we'll see. I mean, we'll have to see when we get there. But I have a sense that when we get there, it's going to be as great as I always wanted it to be. And I have been, we wanted to play for a long time. We just couldn't figure a way of doing this. We were being a bit too righteous, I think, about not wanting to take sponsorship and not wanting, we just, we couldn't figure a way. But I think we've figured a way of doing it now that means that we can put on a great show and not have to bend over. Because we won't do that.
It means that Latin America, you're gonna take the whole stage, the whole set.
Yes. Or else we won't go. We've got a 40-foot lemon, mirrorball lemon. I don't know why. Again, I can't remember. It's just wrapping paper for our songs because our songs are not so sweet. But yeah, we're taking the whole electric circus your way.
Bueno, no todo lo bueno puede durar para siempre. Tenemos que darle el final a este YouTube Pop, que fue una revisión un tanto histórica por tener a Bono Vox y a Larry Mullen hablando para nuestras cámaras y también diciendo lo de Latinoamérica, lo importante que es esa deuda histórica para que el grupo por fin haga una gira como corresponde en nuestro continente. Cerramos, espero que les haya servido para conocer un poco una banda que nos ha llamado la atención, igual que todo este lugar, Dublín, Irlanda, por ser humildes, por no tener la cabeza hinchada de tanto pop star. Obviamente el disco se llama Pop, pero la versión es diferente. Espero que lo hayan disfrutado. Nos vemos, hasta la próxima.
So love is bigger than love is not what you're